PPT. Okay, PPT. Is it clearly visible to you? I need a confirmation from your part so that I can understand. All right. Good afternoon. Well, welcome back to our online session. And this is your most probably third period, right? Third period or third class of the day. Uh, and in this class, we shall not be discussing about literature, linguistics here. Instead, we shall be discussing about literary theory and criticism. That is ENM 6213. So in the previous class, we have discussed about unit one. Sorry, block one. So today we shall focus on uh, block two. That is new classical criticism. I think we focus mainly on Western, you know, uh, classical literary criticism and theory, right? In the previous class. So today we shall focus on new classicism instead. Okay. So now let's move on to the content. So this is the lecture content. There is first we shall review the previous lecture a little bit, and then unit breakdown from units 6 to 10 of block two, and then learning goals, objectives, and outcomes, and then we shall discuss each unit of block two. Then I shall give you questions, few questions to be solved by you, and then I shall finally conclude, and then I'll tell you about the next step or next lecture topics. Okay. So now, what have we discussed in the previous lecture? So we discussed about block one, that is unit one to two, sorry, five. So that is all about Western classical literature. And first we focus on we focused on Aristotle politics and Longinus on the front line, and then we also discussed about literary as mimesis, that is imitation of life, and then we look into the importance of plot, characters, and structure in tragedy. Then we discussed key concepts: catharsis, catharsis, peripecia, anagnosis, and Longinus, and also we discussed about Longinus literacy, like literature should have elevate, inspire. There's like some sublime effect. This thing we have discussed, right? So, of all this, the key idea that we uh, got from out of this is, classical criticism, lays the foundation, right, for later theories. Okay, the later that we will be discussing also by emphasizing structure, emotions, and artistic excellence. This is all about block one unit 1 to 5. Okay, so just a minute. Small one. So so sorry about that. It was a call from for admission, so I just picked up the call. Uh, so this is all about the all about the previous lecture. Right now, let's come on to the main discussion of today's. That is, let's begin with before that, let's do a big unit breakdown of today block two. What are the units? How many units we are going to cover? Okay, there are 5 units. Unit 6 to 10. That is John Dryden, right? John Dryden, an essay of dramatic poesy, and Johnson, Dr. Johnson, the life of John Milton, Dr. Johnson, in Unit 8, we shall deal with Dr. Johnson, life of John Dryden, and Unit 9, Dr. Johnson, life of John Edison. Okay, and then Unit 10, Dr. Johnson, life of Alexander Pope. These things we shall discuss in today's lecture. All right. Then now let's move to the unit 6. Unit 6. John Dryden, an essay of dramatic poesy. Just a minute. Okay. So in Unit 6, there is on John Dryden, an essay of dramatic poesy. Sorry, again I forgot to tell you about the learning goals, right? So course objectives. Let's look into the learning goals before we go into Unit 6. So now course objectives and expected outcomes. So the first objective is to understand the historical development of neoclassical criticism, and the second is to utilize major theoretical argument in Dryden's and Johnson's work, and to examine the relationship between literature, morality, and society. Then to develop critical reading and analytical skills. An expected outcome is are you'll be the first one is you'll be able to explain neoclassical principles in detail. And you'll also be able to critically evaluate major literary figures. And you'll be able to apply theoretical concepts to literary text. And you'll also be able to construct academic arguments using critical frameworks. So these are the learning goals. Now let's move on to the without further ado, let's move on to the unit 6. It's John Dryden, an essay of dramatic poetry. So now to understand first let us understand the historical background. The year 1960, sorry, 1668 is important. Why? The period was known as the Restoration in England. So when the monarch was restored after a period of political and social upheaval under Oliver Cromwell, uh, the theater, which had been closed during the Puritan rule, were now reopened. So this revival of theater brought with it fresh debate about uh, what good drama should look like. So Dryden uh, wrote his essay right in the middle of this in exciting cultural moment. So this essay is started as a dialogue, a conversation among four speakers on a boat on the river Thames. So each speaker represents, different point of, view about drama. So the dialogue, form, this dialogue form was, itself a classical device borrowed from Plato, but Dryden used it to present several competing arguments in a lively and balanced way. The first major thing, as you can see here in this, is the debate between ancient and the moderns. Ancient meaning the Greek and Roman classical writers followed the strict rules, the structures in the drama. So they believed that rules gave drama order and beauty. The modern the moderns, meaning like contemporary English writers valued creativity, freedom, and innovations. So Dryden's essays explores both sides, of these arguments honestly, which shows his critical balance and fairness. So the second major themes is the comparison between French and English drama. French dramatists followed the three classical unities very strictly. They're like unity of time, meaning the action of a play should take place within one day, like unity of place, meaning the action should occur in a single locations, and unity of actions, meaning the plot should have one central storyline. So Friends plays where elegant and disciplined, but also sometimes rigid and artificial. So English drama, as Dryden, presents it, was more flexible, more realistic, more emotionally varied. So English playwrights like Shakespeare's mixed comedy, tragedy, like changed locations and covered long periods of time. So all things that French critics would have found improper. So this brings us, to the third major theme that Dryden's defense of English drama. Dryden argues that English drama, while it may well violate, uh, classical rules, captures real human emotions and psychological complexities in a way that French does not always, manage. His most famous example is Shakespeare, whom he praises as a natural genius. Uh, Shakespeare broke many rules, but he achieved deeper emotional truth. Dryden, recognizes, uh, uh, you know, I mean, Dryden, broke many rules, but he achieved deeper truth. Dryden recognizes this and celebrates it, even while acknowledging that classical rules, have value. Okay, so Dryden, critical contribution is enormous. He established the foundations of, modern English literary criticisms. He shows that good criticism must balance rules with creative freedom, and that literature must ultimately be judged by its effect on the audience. So his writing style, clearisms, and elegance, so also became a model for later critic. So as we study the later units on Johnson, Dr. Johnson, right? Keep asking yourself, how does Johnson's approach compares to uh, Dryden's? All right, now let's move to uh, unit 7. So here, uh, in unit 7, we see here, Dr. Johnson, life of John Milton. Uh, it covers his critical assessments of John Milton. So it is found in his famous works called lives of English poets. This work is a collection of biographical and critical essays on major English poets. It is one of the most celebrated examples of new classical literary criticism. So let us understand both background and the main arguments carefully. So first, who is Dr. Samuel Johnson? Dr. Samuel Johnson is often referred to as Dr. Johnson, uh, was one of the greatest literary figures of 18th century England. So he was a poet, essayist, uh, moralist, and above all, a critic. His most famous work includes the Dictionary of English language, which he almost single-handedly compiled, as well as the Rambler essays, and of course, lives of English poets. And so Johnson, uh, believed that literature should be clear, more instructive, and accessible to the general reader. So these beliefs directly shaped his evaluation of Milton. Now, why is the life of Milton important for us? Milton was 17th century poet, so best known for his epic poem Paradise Lost. I hope you know about Paradise Lost, right? You have read, maybe you have heard about this. So which it tells the biblical story of the fall of man. Paradise Lost was not was is widely considered as one of the greatest poem in English, in the English language. So, but Johnson's response to Milton was not entirely one of simple like praying. As a new classical critic, Johnson applied rigorous standards of judgments, and he found both strengths and weaknesses in Milton's work. So let us begin with uh, the praise of Milton. He acknowledges that Victor Bardoslus is a great epic. So, monumental literary achievement. He recognizes Milton's elevated style and intellectual depth. Milton's poem is vast in scope and ambitious in its design, and then deeply learned in its references to theology, classical literature, and the philosophy. Johnson gives credit to all of this. So, however, Johnson also raised serious criticisms of Milton's works. He, his main objection was uh, that Milton's language is difficult and understand, and sometimes uh, artificially constructed, meaning Milton often inverted word order and use unusual, Latin-like grammatical structure that make the poem hard to read, especially for ordinary readers. Johnson valued readability and clarity very highly, and he felt that Milton sacrificed these qualities in the pursuit of a grand, you know, grand, grand style. So he also questions Milton's choice of blank verse, that is, unrhymed poetry for a long epic. So in Johnson's view, the music and discipline of rhyme constructed to poetic excellence, and a blank verse risk becoming, loose and formless. So the deeper insight here is about, Johnson and criticals, I mean, about Johnson is like critical values. Johnson consistently judged literature on the basis of clarity, moral instructions, and emotionally accessibility. Okay, so he wanted literature to speak to common people, not just to learn scholars. Okay, like this is very important. A new this especially like new classical principle, very important new classical principle that literature should serve the reader and society, not just display the poetic skill. So remember this principle. It will come up again and again as we discuss, Edison and Pope. So Newton impresses and even overwhelms Johnson, but does not always move to engage him as a reader. So that distinction is central to understanding Johnson's critical approach. Okay, now let's move on to unit 8, that is on Johnson, live up, assessments of the live up John Dryden. So now, uh, so I think you remember John Dryden. You have remember John Dryden, right? I have already discussed in the unit 6. So now in unit 8, we are seeing Dryden through the lens of Johnson. That is, we are seeing how one great critic assessed another great critic who came before him. So this is an interesting critical exercise. It gives us, insight into both Dryden and Johnson. So Johnson presents Dryden as a true pioneer of English literary criticism and writing. In his estimation, Dryden is the father of English criticism, the person who first established, a serious, rigid and systematic way of thinking about English literature. So this is high praised indeed from Johnson, who was himself a rigorous critic with high standards. Okay, so what were Dryden's key contributions according to Johnson's? First, Dryden established, critical standards. Before Dryden, there was no widely accepted, framework for observing English literature. Dryden provided, clear principles how to evaluate drama, poetry, prose that later critics could build upon. So, second, Dryden developed English prose uh, first time. Okay, so his essays, prefaces and critical writings are written in a way that is clear, balanced, and intellectually strong. So Johnson recognized that Dryden helped shape the very language of English literary discussions. So third, Dryden excelled in satire and dramatic writing. His poems like Absalom and Achitophel, I think you have read these things maybe in your graduation. I don't know whether you have read all these things or not. And Macflag, no. So how satire could be both politically sharp and artistically refined. So Johnson's overall view of Dryden is that he improved the English literary language. Dryden, showed writers and thinkers how to express, complex ideas with balance, clarity, and intellectual strength. His works demonstrated that serious criticism did not have to be dry or academic. It could also be lively, readable, and engaging. So one of the most important insight from this unit that Dryden served as a bridge between classical and modern classical literature. So he was deeply influenced by the classical Greek and Romance models, but he is also uh, adopted so adapted. He also adapted, not he was also he also adapted with those models to the English context and to the tastes and needs of contemporary readers. So Johnson respected that this balancing act and so Dryden as a model of law of how criticism should work. It should be grounded in reason and principle. So, but also responsive to the actual nature of the literature being discussed. So, a practical example from this unit is worth noting. So, Dryden essays and prefaces were not just academic exercises. So, they were guides for readers. They told readers how to evaluate and enjoy literature logically and intelligently. So this is the key classical idea. The critics serve the public by educating their tastes and judgments. So Johnson himself followed this tradition throughout his career. As we study this unit, think about what it means to be a critic who serves, you know, the reading public. Okay, so just a minute. Let me just, okay. So now let's move on to the unit 9. That is on uh, the life of uh, Joseph Edison. So here, uh, Joseph, Joseph Edison, he how Johnson uh, evaluate on Joseph Edison, tells us a great deal about what neoclassical critics valued most. So as you can see here, Joseph Edison, was a writer and politician of the early 18th century, best known for his contribution to hugely influential periodicals. So the Titular, and more importantly, the Spectator, and which he co-founded with his friend Richard Steele. The Spectator was published daily and was read by wide audience of the Middle English readers. So it contained essays on a wide range of topics: literature, manners, philosophy, morality, and social behavior. So these essays were short and well written and aimed at improving the taste and conduct of ordinary readers. So the key features here of Edison's writings that Johnson and identified are worth learning carefully. So first, Edison wrote in clear and simple prose, unlike Milton, whose language was grand and difficult. Edison's essays are easy to read. Every sentence is well constructed, and every idea is clearly expressed. Johnson, who valued clarity above many other literary, uh, qualities, found this very commendable. So, second, Edison focused on, moral and social values. His essays were not merely entertaining; they had a purpose. They wanted to, make readers better people. So more polite, more cultured, more thoughtful, and more aware. So third, Edison specifically addressed middle class readers. So this is significant because it shows that new classical criticism was not just for scholars and aristocrats. Edison believed that good literature and good criticism should be available to all educated people, regardless of their social background. So Johnson's evaluation of Edison is notably warm, okay, and positive. He praises Edison's elegance and clarity in strong terms, perhaps more warmly than he praises Milton's. Johnson notes that Edison's writing promotes the refinement of society, and which means it helps people become more cultured, more thoughtful, and more morally serious. So, um, the critical significance of Edison in the history of literature is also very important. He is largely responsible for developing the modern essay as a literary form. So, this kind of short and well written, clearly written essays that you write today in your academic or work or something to the traditional, that edition helped establish. We also helped develop modern English prose style with the idea that the writing should be clear, balanced, and purposeful. Now, here is examples in the last with edition purpose. So, many of these essays in the Spectator dealt with the topics like how to be a good citizen, how to appreciate beauty, how to avoid, vanity and foolishness. And these were practical, more topics than moral topic that appeal, to his middle class readership. Edison wanted to improve manners, taste, behavior, through good writing. So this is very characteristics of new classical aim. Okay, and it helps explain why Johnson admired him so much. So that is about unit 9. So now let's move on to the last unit, that is unit 10. That is research assessment on life of Alexander Pope. So uh, so Johnson's view of him will help us understand, consolidate, everything we have discussed today about classical criticism. So first that let's try to know about him a bit with Alexander Pope. Something. Alexander Pope is actually lived from 19 sorry, not 19 1688 to 1744, and he was one of the most celebrated English poet of his time. His works include like The Rape of the Law. Maybe you have already heard about these things. I think The Duchy, an essay on Christian, an essay on man, and his famous translations of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. This work covers an enormous range from playful social satire to serious philosophy to literary theory. So both was extraordinary skill and versatile, but he always maintained a discipline and balance that neoclassical aesthetic demanded. So what were the key characteristics, of Pope's writings? First and most importantly, Pope was a master of the heroic couplet. A heroic couplet is a pair of rhyming lines written in iambic or pentameter. That is the 10 syllables per line with regular stress patterns. So Pope used this, form with extraordinary, precision and elegance, packing complex ideas into compact and perfectly balanced line. So, for example, one of his famous lines from an essay on criticism, like "To err is human, to forgive divine." This is a heroic couplet, simple, clear, rhythmically perfect, and morally, profound. So, second, uh, Uh, Pop poetry consistently emphasized order, balance, and harmony. Uh, both in content and in its form. See, his poems are carefully structured. They are not loose or they're not loose or experimental. So third, Pope was a master of particularly in works like it's not sorry. He's also master of satire. He used wit and irony to criticize the police and the tension of his society. Like in his work, the realm of the law, the dudes here. So his satire was sharp, but also elegantly crafted. So Johnson's evaluation of Pope is very admiring. He praises Pope's precision and weight, his ability to say exactly the right thing in exactly the right way. He also recognizes Pope's extraordinary uh, control over poetic form, noting that Pope made the heroic, you know, puppet an instrument of remarkable power and flexibility. So next, that is the example of uh, the rape of the law is particularly instructive. The rape of the law. Okay, this is a mock epic here. This is a mock epic poem that uses a elaborate style of classical epic poetry to tell uh, a trivial story about a young nobleman shipping a long hair from a lady's hand by treating a silly social incident with the grandeur of Homeric epic. So Pope exposes the vanity and pettiness uh, in it. So it is social satire at its best. So witty, elegant, and morally grounded. Okay, so new classical art as its as its finest. It entertains, right? It criticizes and it educate all at the same time, right? So this is typical new classical. So now, what are the key features? Sorry, just a second. Now these are the key features of the classical wisdom. The first feature is it emphasizes on reason over emotions. The second is importance of roles and structure. The third is literature should imitate classical models. And the fourth one is it focuses on moral purpose and social order. And the fifth one is preference for clarity, talent, and uh, you know disciplines. So together, these five features define the classical critical tradition. So they form a coherent set of values and beliefs about literature, what literature should be, what criticism should do. Understanding these features will help analyze and discuss you know new classical text with confidence. Also, later movements like romanticism, realism, modernism define themselves in parts by reaching, sorry, not reaching, reacting against these very values. So this is the beauty of studying literary history. Everything is like connected. Okay, so this is the and block two. So here, uh, next is questions. Based on today's discussion, here I have provided you three questions that to be solved by you. So please go through the SLM and also this PPT, go through it and try to attempt these questions and show it to me. Okay. So first question is explain writers argument in ancient versus modern debates. And second question, how does the Johnson evolve in Milton's style and poetic achievements? And third, discuss the major features of neoclassical realism with reference to Poe. So these are the three questions. Now let's go to the conclusion. So to conclude today's discussion, today's lecture, so what are the things we have discussed? Main points. So let's pinpoint first. We have discussed that neoclassical emphasizes on what discipline, vision, and moral purpose. And we also discussed about how Triton introduced political thinking in English literature. We also discussed how Johnson evaluated literature based on clarity and moral value. So, and we also look into how, finally, we also look into how these critics shaped the foundation of modern literary criticism. So that's all about block 2, unit 6 to 10. Okay. Now, in the next lecture, we shall discuss on modern criticism. Please go through it. Okay, so that you understand better when you attend the class. All right. Uh, so with this, I conclude today's session. And if you have any questions, if you have any questions, doubt, if you have any questions, doubt, you may raise the questions. Okay, you may ask the questions. If not, uh, with this, we stopped today's class. We stop here. So thank you so much and see you in the next class.